Hello guys, it's Willem Petzer here. It looks like I am actually live. I didn't know that. I was actually just figuring out some settings here. That is quite funny. But in any case, it's good to see that there's already quite a few people on here. I see there are about 100 people on here. Just figure out. There we go. Alright, thank you guys for tuning in. While we still wait for a bunch of people to join us, got quite a funny story to tell you guys. So today I read this news that Eskom is actually going to put some tariffs on solar panels, basically making you pay more if you have solar panels in your house. The story is a little bit more complex than what I'm saying to you right here, so I actually explained the whole story on a video that will be released tomorrow morning at 6 AM. So for those of you guys who are awake at that time, it's a good way to start your morning. But in any case, so as I was taking this video, my power went down, so I couldn't continue to take the video in my office. So I had to go outside, and it's really pouring, it's raining outside. But I had to go outside to do the video because it was already quite dark inside, so my office was dark, so I couldn't take the video. So I'm standing outside in the pouring rain and I'm taking this video to explain to you guys about what happened and that Eskom is going to charge for solar panels, and I just thought it was quite ironic that I had to record this specific video outside in the rain because my power was off. But in any case, so it looks like there's quite a few people already tuned in, and let's start with what I wanted to talk about. So as you guys, if you saw my post on Twitter or Facebook or Telegram, if you follow me there, as you guys know, I said there, we're only shooting ourselves in the foot when we live in denial of reality. Most of us are still, at least subconsciously, under the impression that we live in a Western liberal democracy. This is why we treat our politics as we would have if we lived in a European country. We are not getting anywhere near fixing our political situation in South Africa because we do not understand African politics for what it is. We live in an African authoritarian one-party state. This is to say, we are very little different from a country like Uganda or Nigeria or Zimbabwe or whatever. If you look at African governments all over, they're all basically the same. Some are worse than others, but they're all found on the same core principles. Only once we understand this, we will be able to start working towards realistic and workable solutions. So I read this off for you guys because I could write it in a much better way than I could just speak it and say it. But what inspired me to do this video is the fact that over the last year and a half, I haven't been much on YouTube, as you guys know. I've been, you guys will hear from me in later streams, the full story of what I've been up to and everything. And why I didn't really have the time to specifically do YouTube as much. This year I will try to do at least one stream a week and a few videos a week. But in any case, so I read a lot, and I did a lot of research into African governments and the way that Africa is being run and so on. And then today on Twitter I saw a very, very interesting post. And this is someone that made a post, and he said, so there's no way the ANC will survive this corruption scandal. And I found it quite funny because it's an ongoing story that we hear over and over and over again. The first corruption scandal that was really like an international news corruption scandal, and it was the first time we had a major such a thing in South Africa that was so out in the open, was in 1995 or 1996, between those 2 years, the so-called Sarafina scandal, which involved then President Nelson Mandela and of course the infamous Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. where they basically said that they wanted to make this musical for children and it's about AIDS and it's about raising awareness of AIDS and, you know, try to help kids not get AIDS. And it was going to be called Sarafina 2. Sarafina 1, of course, was the one that was about the struggle, and Whoopi Goldberg was in it and so on. But Sarafina 2 would have nothing to do with the struggle. This would be a new struggle against AIDS. And Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma contracted one of her close friends, and 2 million was given for this project to make this movie. It was going to be a high budget movie for the time that the money was given, and well, it is 2021 now. It's the 28th of the 1st, 2021, and there is still no Sarafina 2. So these corruption scandals happened over and over and over again for the last 3 decades, and guess what? The majority of people still voted for the ANC in every single election. And I can guarantee you guys, the majority will again vote for the ANC in every single upcoming election, unless another African party comes. And this African party is more African than the ANC. Then they might get votes from the ANC. And now I'm specifically referring to a party like the EFF. And another such thing that we see all the time is the fact that people make this argument. It's always coming from these so-called classical liberals, like, let's say, for example, Frans Cronje. Now, I've read this book by Frans Cronje called South Africa in 2030, and it's quite a good book in many senses, but the core argument that some of these people always make is the fact that, you know, the ANC won't survive for this long because the electorate is going to punish them for everything that they're doing. And this does not only include corruption, also mismanagement, and you know, the fact that people are in a worse position now than they were 10 years ago, which was a worse position than they were 20 years ago. And for the average South African, specifically black South African who vote for the ANC, things are just becoming worse and worse and worse every single year. And they say, listen, because of all of these things happening, the people on the ground are seeing the actual effects of corruption and the effects of this mismanagement. So this is why they are going to get rid of the ANC. But, you know, there have been service delivery protests, which they use as a you know, evidence for this happening. There has been service delivery protests since 1994. So in any case, these are the things that inspired me to do this video and tell you guys why nothing's going to change with the regard of our government. There's no political solution for us here in South Africa. Politics, it doesn't help to even try and participate in politics to do anything better in this country. So I'm going to divide this video into 2 sections. The first section will be about why the political solution is dead and why politics does not play any role in South Africa, and why, in the betterment of South Africa, and why it doesn't even help to try use politics as a solution to fix this country. And then the second part, I will be talking about alternative solutions. And when we get to the part of talking about alternative solutions, or what solutions we can actually look into, you guys are welcome to talk to me in the chat, and I'll try to see what you guys are saying and try to respond. And you guys can even give ideas of your own, and we'll make it an interactive live chat about that. So let's get into as to why, or what is the specific reason, undertone for why you know, politics will never change here in South Africa. And the reason for this is we understand South Africa's democracy, South Africa's as a liberal democracy, as a Western liberal democracy. You know, when we got our constitution in 1996, when all of the laws were finished, liberals all over the world looked at South Africa and said, this is the best constitution in the world. This is the most progressive constitution in the world. With this constitution, everything will be basically perfect, because this will really protect the rights of the people. Which is quite funny, because once you actually see how it works out in practice, especially in Africa, you'll realize that the constitution isn't even worth the paper that it's written on. The constitution is basically just a piece of paper that's being ignored in government by a bunch of people drawing a 1.1 million rand salary in parliament, and they ignore the constitution with everything that they do. If we have this understanding, wait, let me take one step back. So people, even if you didn't read someone like John Locke, who's a very famous political philosopher of the Enlightenment, you would still have the subconscious idea of government, of the social contract between government and the individual. Even if you didn't really read the political philosophy which underpins this, you as a Western man or as a Western woman, you still have the subconscious idea as to this is how a government functions. Let me explain it to you in more simple terms. So if we look at the social contract between government and individual, we believe that government works for the people and that government is elected by the people to serve the people. And it's not the other way around. People do not serve the government serves the people. Now, this is our subconscious idea of what a government is supposed to be. So if we look at something like nepotism, nepotism would be extremely wrong in a government because a government serves the people. A government is not a business that is there to make a profit for the people who run it. It's there to serve the people without having any profit in mind for the people in government. This is why we pay our taxes. And we don't really have a problem with paying our taxes in the traditional sense because we know that our tax money should be used to basically better the country and to provide services for people on the ground and so on and so forth. But in an African country, we don't live by the standards of John Locke. We don't live with the social contract between individual and governments. We live in a country where the government is seen as a business, and it is not only seen as a business, it's seen as a gold mine for the people in it, which they can just take from and take from and take from. Jacob Zuma said, for example, that there is no such thing as corruption in Africa. And a lot of people misunderstood him. They thought that he meant that, corruption, African governments aren't corrupt. But that's not what Zuma meant. Zuma actually meant that the concept of corruption in a government is a Western construct. Because in an African sense of a government, if you are the king, you are entitled to take anyone's wife, anyone's cattle, anyone's house, anyone's land anytime you would like. You are entitled to it because you are the king. This is what makes an African government different from a Western government. So if we go back to a Western government, we also had these ideas that everything belongs to the king during the time of the monarchy, where the king could not only take people's land away as he pleases or owned all the land in the country, he would also have the power to invoke a law like prima nocte, which is a Latin term describing the right that the noble or the royal person has to actually sleep with any woman they want to before they get married, for example. So we also had these things in the West, but also we in the West we had 2,000 years of development of Christian values and Christendom. Africa never had these 2,000 years of development. Africa never had a renaissance. Africa never had an enlightenment period like Europe had. So if we look at European values, we see that what we see as a modern government comes from the Enlightenment. And we see that because of Enlightenment thoughts, we have this thing called liberalism. But then we look at an African government, and an African government believes that there's no such thing as nepotism. Because just as a father would be able to give a son some money to build his business, or give a son opportunities, his son opportunities specifically to build his own business in the market, which is a normal thing for the West, just so a government is also seen as a business. Just like a father would go out of his way to help his son build his business, whether that is by giving him money or is by giving him opportunities, that is exactly how in Africa they view the government. And the government is also just a business or a gold mine for the people who are fortunate enough to be there. So all of these things like black economic empowerment are there to serve the ANC and serve the ANC's friends. This is why, the DA always have this argument with the ANC, and they tell them, listen, we can't have BE being focused on race, because all that happens then is you give already very privileged black people more money. Patrice Motsepe and Cyril Ramaphosa and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, who's actually worth 1.6 billion rands, they don't need more help getting more money. We need to help the poor people on the ground. And they don't understand why people resist, equity laws being based on poverty and not race, because the majority of very, very poor people in South Africa are actually black people. So it will be almost exclusively black people being helped if these laws are based on poverty and not race. But what they don't understand is that the ANC don't care about that. The ANC doesn't care about helping black people, even if it's poor black people. They care about enriching themselves. So something like BEE should serve as a law to enrich the ANC. And this is why John Steenhuisen or Corneille Mulder or Pieter Groenewald or whomever can make the most beautiful speeches in Parliament, and they can be as witty as they want to be, and they can say whatever they want to, and they can make much better arguments than the ANC or the EFF guys make, but that doesn't matter. Better arguments doesn't matter, because it's all about serving the ANC and serving the ANC's friends. This is the African sense of doing things. And the problem with this is, if you extrapolate this to the people on the ground, the ANC voter is a much bigger problem than the ANC is, because the ANC voter is the one that actually upholds the zeitgeist. He or her is the person who is responsible for the madness that we are living in. It's not the ANC. The ANC is just there to make a massive profit out of whatever opportunity they can get, or the individuals within the ANC. And the fact is, these ANC voters are not going to go anywhere. They're not going to start voting for the DA because the DA has better service delivery or the DA run a better province. They're not going to vote for the Freedom Front Plus because, some very, very famous economist said that the Freedom Front Plus's plan was the best plan. Economically wise, this would actually, stimulate South Africa's economy the most, to grow the most, because it's not about that to them. They don't live in this, as I already explained, they don't live in this society where the idea is that the government works for the people, and where there's a social contract between the government and the individual, where a government is supposed to uphold the values that puts the citizens above itself. And for the ANC voters, they don't see any plan. They don't see any problem with the fact that the ANC don't view it that way, because that is the culture, that is the African culture. And there's nothing that we can do about it. There really is nothing we can do about it on a political level. We're not going to convince anyone to start voting for the DA. Or for whatever other party there is. I just talk about the DA all the time because I know most of the people watching my videos are actually vote for the DA. I wouldn't go as far as calling you guys DA supporters necessarily, because most of you just vote for the DA out because you don't know what other party to vote for. You don't necessarily support the DA's ideology or values. But in any case, I'm just trying to make this point in that manner. So. And the third point and the last point that I want to bring into as to why this will never change is the fact that people are ethnocentric. People are instinctively ethnocentric. What this means is people will always put their own kind above other people. the people who look like them, the people who act like them, the people who speak like them. That means the people who are the same race, the same religion, the same language. They will always put people who are the same as them above other people who are not the same as them. Now in the West, because of liberalism and all these things, we have been convinced that it is morally incorrect to be ethnocentric. It is morally incorrect to put your own kind above other kinds. But this took a very, very long time to convince people on the ground, or the majority of people, that this is immoral. It took years, and I want to say centuries and centuries of philosophy to actually get the basic person on the ground to think this way. But the thing is, if you live in a multicultural society where there are many different ethnic groups, then if you want to take this standpoint that it is morally incorrect to put your own kind above other kinds, then it requires all the different ethnic groups to also take this standpoint. Because if you're the only one, if white people or Afrikaners are the only people in the country who denounce ethnocentrism and who don't put their own kind above the others, then all that will happen is that the other people will just dominate them, and the other people will basically get all the resources and won't share any of it with the poor fools who don't want to put their own kind above others. So Africa never went through the Enlightenment, so Africa never went through this idea that it is morally incorrect to put others above, to put your own kind above others. If you go onto Twitter and you say, I'm a white nationalist, if you say this on Twitter, then people will denounce you and they will be like, what are you saying? This is terrible. This is the worst thing under the sun. Or if you say something like, white people must help each other and must support each other, people will go absolutely crazy and they'll denounce you and they'll tell you you're crazy and you're immoral and all of that. But if you do the exact same thing, if you're black and you say, I'm a black nationalist, if you say I'm a black nationalist, then there's nothing wrong with it. People will praise you and say, okay, you're so stunning and you're so brave and this is so great and all of that. The point I'm trying to make is the fact that it's not morally incorrect to be a black nationalist or a black supremacist, even in the eyes of society, especially in a country that's black majority like South African. But to say the exact same thing as a white person, then there's massive problems for you. So yeah, that's basically it. That's basically the idea that I'm trying to put into people's heads, is that, because we live in an African country, we are no different from Zimbabwe. Maybe we are a little bit different because of the amount of infrastructure and historical things that are being built up here, and thus it will take longer to deteriorate South Africa than Zimbabwe. But culturally, we're also an African country, and we need to know this. And this actually brings me to another very, very interesting story. So the other day I was actually on Twitter and I saw Dr. Corné Mulder sharing this photo of himself with Jackson Mthembu. This was, I think, the day or 2 days after Mthembu died. And he just, showered praise onto Mthembu and said he's such a great guy and so on. And I actually made this post in which I said, he was part of the ANC. So as Ace Magashule said, all of them know about each other's corruption, but they're protecting each other. So that makes him just as guilty as the rest of the ANC. Even if he himself was not as avidly involved in corruption. And then a lot of people actually viciously attacked me and said, you can't say things like this. The Freedom Front Plus is the best party to ever, walk the earth. And it's quite funny because I've criticized the DA so many times on this channel. I've rarely criticized the Freedom Front Plus, but when I criticize the Freedom Front Plus, it's just like everyone attacks me. The very what do you call it, loyal supporters of the Freedom Front Plus are exceptionally vicious if you just do as much as criticize any of their leaders. And this just saddened me, because this means A, these people can't handle a debate or criticism, and B, these people actually believe that the Freedom Front Plus is going to make a difference. You know, the Freedom Front Plus have a few videos on their Facebook on which they do some speeches in Parliament, and these speeches are excellent. I'm not going to take away from it. They make absolutely beautiful speeches in Parliament. But guess who's listening to them? Guess who's actually going to implement anything that they're going to say? Absolutely no one. Absolutely no one, because the ANC want to do what the ANC want to do. As I said, or as I explained much earlier in this video, the ANC is just in it for themselves. It's really... it doesn't matter if you come with a better argument in Parliament. So yeah, that's basically all I wanted to say about wake up and realize what's going on. So let's start talking about solutions. And this is where I actually want to open the chat up. I'm just going to click here to see all of you guys' comments. Let's move this here. Okay, now I can see you guys' comments. This is great. So I'm going to try and see when you ask a good question, I'm going to try and read it. Or if you make a good point, I'm going to try and read it as well. If you want to make sure that I read your comments, then you're welcome to give a super chat. You'll see just under say something, there's a little smiley face, and next to it there's a $sign. If you click on that $sign, you can actually give a super chat, which will make sure that I read your comment or your question. But in any case, we'll take the discussion from here. Sorry, before I get to you guys and your comments and your questions, I'll just start talking about my own thoughts about solutions. So as we can see, government is definitely the problem here, and by trying to change the government, we're not achieving anything. We're not achieving anything of note in changing the government. The DA tried their best to be very close to the ANC, and in order to get some black people to vote for them under Musi Maimane, they took upon themselves many black nationalist elements, and not even that worked. People didn't work. Black people just didn't work for the DA. They just didn't vote for the DA by that time. So what we can see is, in politics, there's no salvation for us in South Africa, for us straight-thinking people. We're not going to vote out bad people. We're not going to replace incompetent, corrupt people with competent and moral people, because simply we won't convince people to vote for a good, competent party, like, for example, the DA, even though we can prove to them that the Cape Province is run better than the other provinces. Service delivery is much better. So with that being said, what can we do? And this is a very, very, very difficult question, but let's try to give some answers. The best way to look at this, and the best way to start looking at solutions, is to look at South Africa as a ship. South Africa is like the Titanic. Now, the biggest mistake people made when they the biggest mistake people made on the Titanic was that after the Titanic was struck by an iceberg, they still believed that the Titanic was not going to sink. Thus, they didn't spend this precious time to make makeshift lifeboats and to prepare to try and survive on the ocean in the ice-cold water. And in the case of South Africa, the ship that is South Africa was already rammed into the iceberg. South Africa as a country was driven by corrupt, incompetent people into the iceberg. So we are busy sinking in that regard, if you look at it in that metaphor. Before I get to the rest, I see Don Barnard gave a super chat, but he didn't say anything. So I don't know if he wanted to ask a question or if he just didn't type it. But thank you, Don Barnard, and thank you, Stolen by a Mother. I'll read your comment right now. I'm just going to finish my point. So what I was saying is, so South Africa as a country already hit the iceberg. The ship is already sinking. All that we can do now is to prepare for the ice cold water and to make ourselves makeshift lifeboats. And these lifeboats, let me put it to you in a very simple manner so I can get to the super chats in between, because I see some of them are piling up. But let's give it to you in a simple manner to make you start thinking about it. So government in the Western sense is something that is supposed to deliver services to people and to fulfill some functions in people's lives. Depending on your ideology, it can range from just, protecting people from threats in the country and outside the country, and making sure that the society is orderly, by policing it and by punishing and getting rid of the bad apples in society that commit crime and so on and so forth. And then if you go to the more socialist side of ideology, you can include things like education, healthcare, and so on and so forth. So to ask yourself what you need as a lifeboat to get away from a sinking government, from a failed state, you got to ask yourself, what things that are being provided by government, or what services that are being provided by government, am I still dependent on? And then build that lifeboat by getting an alternative way to provide that necessary service or thing to yourself. So we'll get to examples quite soon, but let me just dive into the super chats and I'll read these, and and then you guys can send more super chats, and I'll read all of them right now. Once I finish reading the ones that are already here, I'm going to continue talking about the lifeboats that I just talked about. Stolen by a Mother said, "Thank you for this. However, I need more streams like this in order to understand better. I believe we are still very misinformed. We need better guidance." Okay, yes, I agree with this. I agree. I think we really need to be more knowledgeable about this topic. And as I said, I hope to do more streams like this one every week now in this year, so that we can talk about more of these topics and start educating ourselves a lot more, in the sense that we can actually build these lifeboats and get away from this failed state that we are in. I see Bernice Venter also gave a super chat. Thank you very much, Bernice. Bernice also said nothing. Anyway, so that's all the super chats for now. Once more of them start coming in, I'll read them as well. But let's get back to these lifeboats. So, as I said, with regards to these lifeboats, every service that government provides that are necessary to your life or something that makes you dependent on government. And this means that in this regard, you are dependent on government. So once government falls, you won't be able to provide the service to yourself, because you're still dependent on government. And I want to divide these lifeboats into 3 categories. And these categories can range from individual or small lifeboats, to community lifeboats or medium-sized lifeboats, to big lifeboats, or lifeboats that require an entire people to work together on. So small lifeboats, let's start there. If you know that Eskom is providing you with nothing but rolling blackouts, especially in winter months and especially at night time, then you'll know that this one service, which everyone is dependent on, because everyone's jobs, everyone's life is basically dependent on electricity, is one of the things that government is already failing at. So get yourself, or build yourself as an individual in your family, this lifeboat by becoming energy independent. You can consider or research things like gas. Personally, I've got gas on a stove and I've got gas in the oven, so I can make food anytime, even if the power is down. This is probably the cheapest form of alternative energy. You can use this for any source of heating, including a geyser. Start researching things like solar geysers, which are way more energy efficient than just normal solar panels for electricity. Research all these things and start building yourself a hybrid system. You don't need to give out a few 100,000 rands and become entirely energy independent all at once. You can build a hybrid system by changing one thing at a time as you've got money. Start by maybe buying a gas stove, then the next month you can start by I don't know, like maybe buy a few batteries to serve as a power bank for your house. You can maybe buy a small generator so long, and in this way, in a modular fashion, you can turn your entire house into an energy independent house. This is just one example of a small thing that we can look at. If we want to look at a community lifeboat or a medium-sized lifeboat, we need to look at something like the police. Now, the police is very unfortunately extremely corrupt and extremely incompetent in South Africa. We know this because of the results that they have, and it's really terrible for me to say this, and I'm really sad that I do need to say this, because I know there are quite a few really, really good people who are still in our police. But the fact of the matter is that the police is just not, as a whole or as a collective, good. So if we look at farming communities, for example, they've already started building, or we have already started building these community lifeboats by having farm watches. I think most farming communities in South Africa have a farm watch now. And these farm watches have actually proven themselves to be really, really excellent in the sense that they protect communities. The left is always trying to throw it into our faces that farms are, farm attacks, or not farm attacks, but farm murders rather, are going down or on a downward spiral. And this is the truth, but the reason for it is not what they think. It's not because the police are doing their jobs or because the government is good or anything. It's literally because farm watchers are becoming more and more competent by the day, and more people start to actually give their own time to become part of a farm watch, or even to a lesser extent in the cities and neighborhood watch. So these things have been very, very effective. Self-policing has been a really, really good plus point, especially in farming communities. And this is an example of a medium-sized or community-sized lifeboat that we can start working on, which is a good solution for us to start with. And the next one is actually the big lifeboats. So South Africa during apartheid, for example, was, you can basically say, very much a socialist state. We provided basically everything to people, from healthcare to education. So let's talk about education, for example. Most kids are still in state schools because our state schools were such an excellent thing, and they provided such excellent quality education that most people do not see the need to go to private schools. I see Mare van, can't read the rest of your surname, it just shows me 3 dots, but Mare gave a super chat just saying thank you, or thanks for being you. Thank you very much, Marie. But in any case, so most people are still in state education. Now, we know that the state education is going down the drain. If you look at, for example, the way how we are deteriorating, or how South Africa is now in the worst position in the world with regards to education, especially science and mathematics. And I know this is just basically the township schools that are doing so bad, but universities are going exceptionally fast down the drain, And Afrikaans as a medium of instruction was already removed at every single state university right now. Every one of the Afrikaans universities, the many Afrikaans universities that were built by the previous government, has been so-called transformed into English universities. And this is where we can take a page out of the book of the Solidarity Movement, and they showed us that if we as a collective stand together and just contribute a little bit, each of us, just like 100 Rand a month maybe, we can do great things and build our own universities and technical colleges. And I believe if we want to look at the big lifeboats, if we want to look at education, medicine, all of these things, we need to start working together as a collective, and more organizations like Solidarity needs to pop up. More people need to take the initiative to say, I'm here and I'm ready to be put into a leadership role in order to build. We don't need a single leader that will save South Africa or save us from South Africa. We need leaders, small leaders to stand up, organizations to stand up, community leaders to stand up to say things like, we have a goal to build a university, contribute. Or we have a goal to provide safety to this community, to have a neighborhood watch, contribute. You can contribute your money, you can contribute your time, but this is my plan as a leader, and this is the contributions that I need to achieve this plan. And we need a lot more people to stand up and say these things. I see Kyle Green says, thank you for all the brilliant work you do and the stories you get involved in, and the stories you get involved in, bringing the necessary light to them. Brilliant work, Willem. Thank you very much, Kyle, for the super chat and the kind words. So yeah, that's basically my side of what I believe we should look at if we start looking at solutions to ungovernment ourselves. I'm going to, for the next 10-15 minutes, try to look at the comment section. I want to try and see what you guys are saying. I'm going to look through the comments to see if there's any interesting questions or any interesting statements being made by people, comments being made by people. As I said, if you want yourself to be heard, you're very welcome to give a super chat. Otherwise, I'll see if I can find your question or your comment here. If it seems interesting, I'll read it. If there's a question, I'll read it as well. So, I see Kobus says, waar kan ek betrokke raak? Where can I become involved? Kobus, this is a very difficult question to answer because I don't really know you, so I don't know where you live or where you are. But I believe the first thing you should look at is look at your community. What is your community doing? Is there a farm watch in your community if you live maybe in a rural area like I do? Is there a neighborhood watch that you can contribute an hour of your time every week to do some patrols? If there's nothing in your community, you can stand up and become a leader yourself maybe, or you can get involved in any other organization that are doing good work. And you can trust your own gut or trust your own mind actually to see who's doing good work and where it is a good place to contribute towards bettering our position, because we are all in this together. I see William van der Walt says, what do you think of Cape independence? William, I think it's a great thing. This is actually a topic for a whole different stream. This is now we're starting to talk about self-determination. We're starting to talk about balkanization or breaking up the country of South Africa into different countries. This goes a little bit deeper than the things that we discussed here today, but I am very much in support of Cape independence. I'm also very much in support of the Zulu King getting self-determination for his people and breaking his land away from the rest of South Africa, and I'm very much in support of any such a secessionist movement. But it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of fighting in order to get to it, whether that be Cape independence or any other form of succession that we are talking about here. You're not just going to write your name on a list with 200 other people, or 2 million other people, sorry, and then if the list reaches 2 million people, you get independence. You're not just going to, win this in the international court. You're not just going to what else is there? You're not just going to join a website or become part of some sort of cryptocurrency. None of these things. It's not as easy as that. These things are very, very difficult processes that usually only happen when there's a war, especially if the governing party or the dominant group don't want to give succession away, or the dominant group needs to be brought to their knees in another matter. And these are the only two ways that you achieve succession. But being succession, yes, getting to succession is very, how can I put it? A very noble thing to strive towards. But this is not what we talk about today, because the stream today we talked about building lifeboats to get away from the sinking ship that is South Africa. But succession, or building a whole new country, is to say, what do we do once we already built these lifeboats for ourselves and we need to get to land, or we need to get to another ship. So this is the point that I'm trying to make, is we first need to build these lifeboats. We need to be totally government independent, whether that be energy independent, education independent, medically independent, doesn't matter. We need to be 100% independent before we can even begin to get to something like succession or building a new country. I see Patrick Woegerfiening. Is that how you say it, Patrick? Yeah, but Patrick also gave a super chat. Thank you very much, Patrick. He didn't say anything, but he posted a Superman bean. Looks like a pear, a super pear. And also I see there's also a super chat from Daisy Weiro. Thank you very much, Daisy. None of these people said anything. They just said, they just sent these super chats. Thank you, guys. I see Red Sky Alice says, Willem, I would love for you to do a live stream on Cape Independence, your views. You have a large following, get the word out. Yes, Alice, I would also love to do a stream on Cape Independence. Maybe one on succession as a whole. But yes, this is not today's stream. I want to dedicate an entire stream to it. This stream is almost over. So we'll definitely dedicate a whole stream to it. Let me see what else there are. I'm still looking through some comments to see if there's anything interesting that I have. I see Grim asks, okay, no, he's asking someone else. I see Kyle Green says, make me a mod and I'll get rid of these trolls. Okay, why not? Can make you a mod. I've seen you quite a few times here already. You're like part of the channel family. You've been on almost every stream, so I think I can trust you by making you a mod. I see Mudet Klader says, but we were independent. We gave them Ciskei, Transkei, Bophuthatswana, Venda, etc. How much more land do they want? Well, Mudet, the ANC wants everything. Everything. The ANC, they want everything in South Africa. They want to loot the entire country. They want to loot everything they can loot. They want to enrich themselves as much as they possibly can. So, yeah, you can say we gave them the Ciskei and the Transkei and all these other countries. But nothing will be enough for them. Nothing. The ANC wants everything. So that I hope this answers that question. But any case, I think I'll end the stream off here. I think this is a good 50-minute stream. Thank you guys for watching. It was great seeing each and every one of you guys here. And I'll see you most probably next week. Most probably there won't be another stream this week. But thank you guys who were in the chat and who said hello. Thank you guys who gave super chats. That's always very much appreciated. And thank you guys for, just supporting in general. I just see one very interesting comment here that I want to respond to first before I go. And this is Rick Campbell, who said, will you make another melting pot country? And the answer to this is, Rick, most definitely not. Every single one of these melting pot countries, especially once they turn multicultural, whether that be South Africa or America, those are basically the only two that I can name that are really, really multicultural countries. But every single one of these multicultural countries turns out in the end to have some massive problems. America was very, very good, a very, very good country, a great country even, until recently when things started going south, and we know what's going on there right now. The country is in turmoil, and I think there's such a big divide between left and right there that the country might even be on the brink of not necessarily a full-on weaponized civil war, but definitely conflict. So there's that, and that's basically the same thing that I can say for any multicultural country. The moment you have so many people, so many different cultural views and backgrounds together, you get conflict. It's not necessarily violence, it's not necessarily weapon conflict or war, but there's definitely conflict. Any case, guys, thank you for watching. It was great seeing every single one of you here. And I'll talk to you guys probably sometime in next week. But if you want to follow me on Telegram, that would be great. Let me see if I still have Telegram here. There are my channels. t.me/Willem Petzer for English and t.me/Willem Petzer A for Afrikaans. If you follow these Telegram channels, then you will be up to date with basically everything that I do and when the streams will happen and all of those things. So if you want to be here for the next stream and you don't want to miss it, get onto those Telegram channels, and I'll see you next week. Thank you guys for watching. Goodbye, and God bless every single one of you. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to like this video for the algorithm's sake. I see there are almost 600 people watching, so let's get the likes up to 600. Thank you guys for being here. See my video.